My name is Jay Garrick, and I come from another world. Ashley, when you open the singularity, you let a person through the portal.
What, singularity, portal? I don't know what you're talking about.
Last year over Central City, when you ran so fast to stop the reverse flash, you opened a hole into the multiverse. I'm here, Jay Garrick, to stop that.
What, there's a multiverse?
There is... Wait. You don't know what the multiverse is?
No. What's the multiverse?
Well, I'm Jay Garrick.
Who's Jay Garrick?
And I'm him.
Oh.
And I'm looking... Are you Barry Allen?
No.
You don't...
I'm a girl.
You don't wear a Flash costume like mine?
I just podcast.
Oh. Well, I'm Jay Garrick, and I'm obviously in the wrong city, so you must begin your Geek History lesson on Jay Garrick so you can save the worlds of the multiverse. Zoom zoom, zip zip. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson, and prepare to enter your mind university because you have stumbled upon the podcast where we take one character, race, fast speedster from pop culture and teach you everything that you need to know about them in 1 hour or less.
Yes, and today is Jay Garrick, The Flash. In honor of The Flash Season 2, zooming into our television sets and our hearts right now.
Aww.
Coming soon. Right around you. Depends on where you are in the multiverse and where you are in the time-space continuum.
Hello, future people. Hello, past people.
Yes. Now, this episode was suggested on Twitter by Spreewald Fuchs, and that is at SPREEWALDFUCHS. Spreewald Fuchs. I don't know. How do you think you say that? I don't know.
I don't know. He's got
right?
a cool mouse as his avatar.
I see a lot of tweets from him, so he listens to a lot of episodes, and we thank him for the suggestion of doing Jay Garrick, the Flash, the Golden Age Flash, the original Flash.
The original speedster.
The Earth 2 Flash. So let's not waste any time.
Cool.
Because speedsters have plenty of time. So let's be the opposite of them, and let's just do it. Let's hop into the 10-cent origin of Jay Garrick, the Flash.
Yes, and the 10-cent origin is the part of the show where we give you all the cliff notes, the basic constructs, information, secret identities of these characters, in case you go to this awesome party to view the Flash and someone's like, yo, what's up about Jay Garrick?
Mm-hmm. Now, Jay Garrick is, of course, published by DC Comics. His first appearance was in Flash Comics #1 in January of 1940.
No way.
Yep, so he is actually a year younger than Wonder Woman.
Aw, he's a baby.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I think he's the same age as Wonder Woman.
Aw, he's a not baby.
He was created by Gardner Fox and Harry Lambert.
Creator of Batgirl?
Yep, and Harry Lambert. Now, if you don't know who Harry Lambert is, well, I'm going to tell you. Harry Lambert was actually a cartoonist. He worked in a lot of animation, and he actually started in animation when he was 16 years old, and he worked for the legendary Max Fleischer.
Oh,
Ashley,
no way.
do you know who Max Fleischer is?
Max Fleischer is a really well-known cartoonist, and he did a very famous Superman.
Yes, he did the early 1940s, 50-ish Superman cartoon, and the reason why that was so great is because they animated on top of real people doing the movies.
They basically invented a proto version of what rotoscoping is now, and that cartoon. Maybe the storytelling doesn't stand up just because it's stylistically very different.
Still looks great. It's
beautiful. It is. I think it is one of the cartoons that has lasted the test of time the best. It's so good looking.
Bruce Timm actually said it was one of the biggest influences when they made Batman the Animated Series.
I could see that.
Now, Harry Lambert, he was an animator for Max Fleischer, and he helped ink and produce Betty Boop, Popeye, Coco the Clown cartoons, and then eventually he got into comics and made the Flash.
That's where the money is.
Yep.
Comics.
Jay Garrick's real name is Jason Peter Jay Garrick.
Is he really? Is it Jason?
He's Jason Garrick, short, and he's called Jay.
Wow,
Yep.
I didn't know people were being called Jason in the 40s, because for me it's such an 80s
Such
name.
an 80s name?
Yeah. I mean, I know Jason is obviously Greek, but
it's a very old name.
That's so interesting.
Yep. His team affiliations has been the Justice Society of America, the JSA, the All-Star Squadron, and the Justice League. And his partnerships have been with Barry Allen, Wally West, Barry Allen, The Flash, Wally West, The Flash, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and Bart Allen, The Flash.
The best Flash?
His abilities are the ability to run at the speed of sound without the speed force, the ability to run at the speed of light with the Speed Force, superhuman fast reflexes, frictionless aura, which means he can run without burning his clothes off, and speed theft.
Unlike Felicity.
Yep, which means that he can steal speed from other speedsters. So, yeah.
That's a really cool idea that I really like about the DC speedsters.
That they can steal speed from other people?
Yeah.
Or inertia or momentum?
It basically makes them all jerks.
Okay. Next, we move into the podcast section. Oh, wow. Not the I am so confused by the multiverse right now. Let's move into the next section of the podcast called the Meet Cute.
Yes. And the Meet Cute is a term that we stole from romantic comedy storytelling structure, where we tell you how we first met these characters and how cute it was.
Actually, I'm very curious about this one. Where did you first encounter Jay Garrick?
Well, you're going to be like super disappointed in me.
Batman the Animated Series?
It's not Batman the Animated Series for once.
Okay.
I might have heard about Jay Garrick before, but the first time that he really impacted me as a character was in the Jeff Johns Teen Titans run, which is amazing.
Okay.
Because Bart Allen, who is Impulse at that time and later becomes Kid Flash and then becomes Flash for like a second, is living with Jay Garrick and Mrs. Jay Garrick.
Oh, Mrs. Jay Garrick.
Yes.
Yes.
And so he's very much like the senior patriarch of the speedsters, and he's a really big influence on Bart because Bart is kind of the screw up of the Flashes. And Jay's really the only one who has any faith in him at the beginning. So that was where I first encountered Jay Garrick.
I'm trying to look up Jay Garrick's Mrs. Jay Garrick. I can't remember. I have it in the lesson here, but I can't remember.
I keep wanting to say Iris, and like I know that's
no.
wrong.
It's not Iris. We'll get to it.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain I put her name in here.
Okay. Someone will tweet us if we didn't.
I'm certain somebody will be very angry at us right now, but whatever.
So, Jason, where did you first meet Mr. Jason Garrick?
I met Jason J. Peter Garrick in Justice Society of America, Volume 2, Number 1. Now, you may be like, oh, yeah, I know that series. No, you don't. That was a series published
be like that.
in the early 90s, and it had art by Mike Parobeck. And now, at the time, I didn't have any idea what the Justice Society of America was. I didn't know who any of these people were. And Walmart sold bundles of comics. You could get like 20 comics for like, I think, $10 to $5. It was an amazing deal. And they just packaged them up in plastic. And you never knew what you got because, you couldn't tell what the issues in the middle were.
Yeah.
And one time we went to Walmart, I saw Man of Steel, the John Byrne series, and so you saw Luthor standing on the front of the cover, or one of the packages, the one I wanted, had Batman on the cover.
Of course.
And I was like, oh my God, it's the first meeting of Batman and Superman. That's so cool. In that package had this comic, Justice Society of America. And now Mike Parobeck's art kind of looks like Bruce Timm style.
Okay.
But basically it was a 12-issue miniseries that kind of brought the Justice Society of America into like the 1990s. And I was very impressed by it. And it was my first encounter with these guys and who these people were.
About how old were you at this time?
Oh, I don't know. This was...
Ballpark, like 10?
I was probably 10 or 11.
Okay. I think that's interesting because I find... It's speaking in generalizations that people who come to the Justice Society, they come as fans later on. As teenagers, they're not a bunch of characters that necessarily appeal to kids. So I just think that's really interesting.
Well, at the time, I didn't think they were that cool. I really didn't. I actually kind of thought it was weird that there was like old men superheroes. I remember the time being like, well, the art's cool. Mike Parobeck's art is awesome. This miniseries actually is quite good. I actually don't think they've ever put it in trade paperback ever. Because I have some behind the scenes of this exact miniseries.
Okay, so we'll get to that.
We'll get to a little bit of it. I'm pretty certain I put it in there. But we'll see. Okay, that was my first encounter with Jay Garrick because he was in it. The entire Justice Society was in it. I actually only thought Dr. Midnight was cool.
Dr. Midnight is cool.
So there you go. Okay, now we're into the History 101 of Jay Garrick.
Yes.
Jason, Jay, Peter, so many names, Garrick.
The main meat of the lesson where Jason is going to break everything down for you in about an hour.
Now, I want to bring something up. Is
this a caveat?
A little bit. But this is something. They say that in DC Comics, the Flash changes your world. The Flash changes universes.
Iris West said that.
He creates crises that destroy universes.
It's true. They don't say that. It's true.
It makes sense that Jay Garrick the Flash would introduce something that we have not talked about in 84 episodes. Actually, 85, you count the 0 episode. 85 episodes of Geek History Lesson.
What have we not talked about in the 80. Have we really done 85 episodes?
85, if you count the 0 episode.
In the 85, if you count the 0 episode, episodes of Geek History Lesson.
Where the name DC Comics comes from.
Have we not talked about that on air? I know you and I have talked about that.
We have mentioned it briefly, but I have the full origin story because you cannot tell the history of Jay Garrick without telling the history of DC Comics.
Please.
Now, Flash Comics #1 was published by a company called All American Publications. Mm-hmm. Now, All American Publications is one of 3 comic book companies that would later combine to form DC Comics. Now, All American is responsible for some of the superheroes like the original Atom, the original Flash, the original Green Lantern, Hawkman, Wonder Woman, and a bunch of other 1940s Golden Age books. Now, soon, All American Publications was absorbed by National Comics.
I know that name.
Yes, in 1944. National Comics also merged with National Allied Publications. Now, soon in the 1940s, this conglomeration company just kind of started branding themselves on covers as Superman DC.
I just want to say that I think it's super interesting that these companies that were working in the 1940s at the heart of the Second World War all had these very patriotic pro-American, national, all-American names. I think that's super interesting.
Buy wool bonds, Patriot.
Yeah, for real.
So they all, Superman DC was on the covers, and eventually, for a while, just in passing, they were called DC Comics for years, and they didn't officially adopt the name of DC Comics as the name of their company until 1977, the year that Star Wars came out, the year that Superman the movie came out.
I'm going to go ahead and bet that doesn't have nothing to do with it.
Yep. So I found that interesting. They were just kind of called DC.
And Jason, what does DC stand for?
Detective Comics.
Just in case anyone didn't know.
Yeah, Detective Comics.
You didn't mention that earlier. So.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I got a little bit confused and I forgot that. It was National Allied Publications merged with Detective Comics Inc. To form National Comics.
There we go.
And then National Comics absorbed All American Publications.
Okay.
And All American is the company that created The Flash.
Cool.
So there you go. The origin of DC Comics. Lesson over. Thank you all so much for listening.
Great lesson. You worked really hard on this one. I think we all had our minds expanded.
Yep. Now the history.
The history.
But I do have a caveat now.
Okay.
First, you have to know that Jay Garrick and most of the characters of the Justice Society of America are affected by the DC multiverse changes and crises and alterations of the timelines and retcon upon retcon.
And there are so many more than just the main crises that people think of.
Yes. And so, to be honest with you, these are the characters that are very convoluted. So this is my attempt to make this history make the most sense, to make it streamlined, to make it simple for people to understand in less than an hour. So I might leave some things out here and there, and I'm only doing that to simplify things and just to make it very understandable. Because if I put everything in here, oh my God, I read a lot of this. I went to a lot of comics. I was confused by a lot of it.
Well, this is what you get too when you're taking characters that started in 1940.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the Tim Drake lesson where I get to start at 1989, basically. So this is going to be great.
There's a lot of stuff in here that's very fascinating. There's a lot of stuff in here that you probably don't know. So let's get started. The fictional history of Jay Garrick.
Yay, universes.
Now, as a boy, Jay Garrick used to read pulp magazines on the turn of the century superhero Whip Whirlwind.
Sure.
Now, Whip Whirlwind was later revealed to be Max Mercury. Ashley, who is Max Mercury?
Well, Jason, as far as I understand, Max Mercury is a speedster in the DC universe who's named after the god Mercury.
Yes, but he was also one.
I'm sorry, that's all I know.
He was also considered to be the first speedster, and he was a speedster that first connected the Speed Force and jumped through time. That's the reason why he was able to be around in the early 20th century, and comic books were based on him. And then he hopped forward, and he eventually became Bart Allen's mentor.
That is true. That is scientific fact.
Well, I don't know if it's scientific fact, but
Speed Force is science.
it's story fact. Jay would go to Midwestern University in Keystone City. Keystone City is basically Kansas City. It's supposed to be Kansas City, where he would double major in chemistry and physics. Now, an experiment he was working on during his junior year was to purify hard water without any residual radiation.
Interesting.
Now, with a test tube of hard water was accidentally spilled, the fumes knocked Jay Garrick out. So he breathed hard water and he was like, oh, it's too hard.
I just want to... You can drink hard water. It's fine.
Maybe it's too hard.
It just means there's more chemicals in it.
His friend, Elliot Shapiro, dragged him from the lab, and after a week of unconsciousness, he finds he has superpowers.
Yay!
He finds that he can run at superhuman speeds, he has fast reflexes, and at first he decides that, you know what? I'm going to become a college football star.
Football star.
And then he eventually is like, well, maybe that's not really the best use of my powers. So he dons a red shirt with a lightning bolt and a stylized metal helmet with wings based on images of the Roman god Mercury, and then begins to fight crime as the Flash. Now, the helmet actually belonged to Jay's father, Joseph, who fought during World War I. It was actually his army helmet.
Oh, I see. And then he put
wings on it. Yeah, he put wings on it.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. So, Jay Garrick was able to run 20 times faster than the speed of sound. And he could possibly run up to the speed of light when he's tapping into the Speed Force. Mm-hmm. Now, without the Speed Force, it is said that his top miles per hour is 770 miles per hour. That's the
what freaking slacker.
That is his top, which is interesting because we saw Barry Allen in the first season of Flash hit that in like episode 6, I think.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting.
He's got a cooler suit, so...
Yeah, that's true. Jay's first case involves battling the Faultless Four.
Yes.
A group of blackmailers. I'm going to try to say their names. C.R. Satan, not joking, Serge Orloff, Duriel, and Smythe, who plotted to steal an atomic bombarder and sell it.
I love all these pseudo kind of Russian Eastern European bad guy names.
Again, 1940s comics, probably very racist against the Japanese and Germans.
Yes, if we're going to be very honest.
There's a lot of episodes where issues in the Golden Age where Superman just beats up Japanese people left and right, and it's quite racist. So, fun fact. In Jay's early comics, it seems to be kind of widely known that Jay Garrick is the Flash. He really doesn't quite...
He doesn't wear a mask.
He doesn't wear a mask. Although, later stories would say that he had a secret identity and people didn't know who he was, and that he was able to maintain a secret identity by like constantly vibrating.
Like they do in the Flash TV show now.
Making him hard to recognize or clearly photograph.
I don't mind that for speedsters.
No, I don't either. And actually, there's a lot of... John Byrne said that's the case for Superman.
Interesting.
That Superman, they're...
so that on top of the glasses.
Yes. So in John Byrne's Man of Steel, Jimmy is one of the first people to actually get a clear photograph of Superman.
That's so interesting.
Yes, because otherwise it's all blurry.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like to believe. It is a little ridiculous, but then like it kind of steals the image of, oh, well, it can't ever show a newspaper cover then because you don't want to look at a blurry face.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Interesting though.
So, but interestingly enough, in a later story, he later blamed his lack of a mask on his girlfriend, Joan. There she is.
Mrs. Jane Joan
Yep,
Garrick.
Joan Garrick, on deducing his true identity. She was able to figure it out. So he's like, if only I wore a mask.
She's like, honey, I've seen you naked. I know who you are.
I've seen those lightning bolts naked, if you know what I mean. Hey-ho.
Well, if she's his girlfriend, I'm not going to talk about 1940s values.
It's the 1940s.
She was really smart.
The world is pure. And boys and girls only hold hands.
Yes.
For America. Okay, now Jay Garrick is originally based in New York City.
Yes.
But this was later retconned to fictional Keystone City. Mm-hmm. And Jay Garrick's street address is 5252 78th Street, Keystone City, Kansas.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
I get it. All the cool characters come from Kansas. You got Superman, you got Dorothy, and now you got Jay Garrick.
Well, I don't know if we want to keep Jay Garrick, so there you go.
Oh, Jay Garrick's cool.
Yeah, well, he has a cool design. I have a Jay Garrick action figure.
I know.
It's a cool. I bought it because he has a cool design.
He's cool.
I have 2 Jay Garrick action figures actually. I have the Earth 2, and I have the original.
Is this fodder for the Geek History Lesson extra episode
Well,
that people can listen to?
We'll get to that. I got something special for that.
Okay.
So we'll get to that. He is a founding member of the Justice Society of America and serves as its first chairman. They don't really have leaders. They have chairmen. They kind of like a board meeting because they're... Because they're old.
Because they old.
Because they're old. Okay. Jay Garrick the Flash soon becomes one of the best Golden Age superheroes. During all of this time, he actually remained a prominent scientist.
Cool.
And he worked at Chemical Research Incorporated before founding his own company, Garrick Laboratories.
Nice.
And during his career, he would often find himself embroiled in really kind of ridiculous and silly adventures against this trio of tramps called Winky, Blinky, and Naughty.
Stop it.
Also known as the Three Dimwits.
Stop it. They sound like Tinkerbell's dumb brothers.
Yeah, well, basically they would try to make a crime and then they would just keep failing. They would just be like, oh, we're going to try this, Jay Garrick, beep, beep, beep. And he's like, well, I can run faster than you. And they're like, oh, damn it, we forgot that you can run faster now.
Well, it's the golden age.
Yep. Basically, they were never successful. Later, it was soon revealed that a professor from Jay's old university found a container of heavy water vapors and used it to gain super speed himself, becoming a villain called Rival. Now, Rival
on the nose.
is the reverse Flash for Jay Garrick. Mm-hmm. He looks like Jay Garrick, his shadowy version. He has the helmet and a little lightning bolt. He's actually Dr. Edward Claris. He's a professor of the university attended by the Golden Age Flash, and he believes that he recreated the formula that Garrick gave his speed, which he calls Velocity 9. And he had heard Joan Garrick one night talking about how the Flash gave his speed to another student. And this actually helped Dr. Claris get the formula. And of course, Claris was bitter at the scientific community because he was like, I figured out the formula that made the Flash. And they're like, don't you lie. You're stupid.
I used to live I lived in a town called Stratford that had hard water. So you install a water softener in your home and then I really love that hard water is the thing that gives you super speed. Why don't I have super speed?
Ashley, in the 1940s, hard water is a dangerous and uncontrolled substance and can give you superpowers.
You sound like the beginning of an episode of Legend of Korra.
That's kind of what the voice they took. That's where they got the idea. 1940s newsreel.
I just think it's so wonderfully absurd that hard water is the thing. Even more, it's more absurd than I fell in some chemicals and rolled around.
Nope, it's hard water.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous substance.
Anyway, please continue.
Now I lost the place because you're going off on hard water.
I'll just talk some more about hard water.
Rival soon took away Jay's speed after capturing him, making him super slow. But Jay used hard water vapors again, and he was able to regain his super speed and defeat Rival. Yep. Eventually, they found that Rival's version of the formula was temporary, and so he lost his superpowers, and he got defeated and went to jail. Now, soon things started getting hazy for Jay Garrick's adventures. Why? Because his book was canceled. That's why. And
damn it.
Now I have to give you some publishing history.
Okay, cool. I like publishing history.
Now, of course, as I said before, this character first appeared in the first issue of the anthology series as an anthology book called Flash Comics in 1940, published by All American Publications.
Most of the comics of the time were anthology stories.
Yep.
Like Action Comics, Detective Comics.
Exactly. He was soon featured in All-Star Comics as part of the Justice Society of America, and in 1941, he got his own solo book called All Flash.
All Flash?
Yeah, that actually, All Flash is this title that has been recycled through DC for years.
It sounds like a breath mint.
And that's where it comes from. When Barry first came back, they did a All Flash #1. I actually love it.
Did they really?
Yeah, I actually love it. It was a one shot.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like Batman Family and Superman Family.
Yeah.
I would love it if there was a book in the DC universe where it had all the speedsters and it was just called All Flash.
Okay, pitch it.
Yep. After World War II, superheroes, of course, declined in popularity. And All Flash was canceled in 1948 after 32 issues.
No!
Flash Comics was canceled in 1949 after 104 issues.
No!
And All-Star Comics was canceled in 1951 after 57 issues, marking Garrick's last Golden Age appearance.
Wow.
Nearly 10 years before Barry Allen.
Wow.
So we would not see Garrick for 10 years.
Before Barry Allen.
1961 is Barry Allen.
Is he really? Wow, I thought Barry Allen was older than that.
And after this, Jay Garrick would never get a solo series. He's never had a solo series since. He's only appeared in like group books in Just Society and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, he got one before the year 2000, so.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Or if you want Barbara Gordon.
Now, here's how the DC fiction, the history of that universe, fills that time.
Cool.
There is a story that explains that the JSA eventually retired, including the Flash, and explained that in 1951, the JSA was investigated by the House Un-American Activities Committee. The House Un-American Activities Committee for possible communist sympathies.
Oh, yeah.
And they were asked to reveal their identities, which was later revealed to be caused by a villain, which is not important.
Pseudo-McCarthyism.
Yep. The JSA declined, and Garrick, who had recently married his longtime girlfriend, Joan, they all retired from superhero life, including Jay. Mm-hmm. Now, as a trained scientist, he ran his laboratory for several decades, and All-Star Squadron Annual Number 3 states that the JSA once fought a villain named Ian Carcole, who imbued them with energy that slowed their aging, allowing Garrick and the rest of the members of his team, as well as their girlfriends and sidekicks, which is not quite clear.
It's the people you have the most physical contact with, of course.
To remain active into the late 20th century without infirmity. Now, the 1990 Starman series, which I love, had a character named the Shade. And he was a villain for several years. He's basically an immortal. And it was once suggested that the Shade once prompted Garrick to come out of retirement in the 1950s. And that's about it.
Okay.
So that's kind of what they explained. There's some other stuff. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But then an issue happened that changed Jay Garrick forever.
Forever.
Flash. You've never even seen that movie.
I haven't.
Flash Gordon. Nice. Flash. Number 123, published in September of 1961. And you may be asking yourself, what is this? You said the damn book was canceled. You're a liar.
What is this? You said the damn book was canceled. You're a liar.
Thank you. This was the book that introduced Earth 2. Garrick emerged from retirement in 1961 to meet the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen, from a parallel world. Garrick's world was soon dubbed Earth 2, while Allen's was dubbed Earth 1. Now, if I was on Earth 2, I'd be like, whoa. Why?
Yeah.
Why am I 2? Why am I 2? Hey, my name is Jay Garrick. Why is my world Earth 2? Barry.
I'm Barry Allen.
That's not bad. Great. That's not a bad Grant Gustin. The singularity, yes. Barry.
Look, I don't give the names. You gotta talk to Cisco for that. I just run really fast and kiss girls. More girls than I should really be kissing.
Do you actually kiss girls?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Like 3 of them in one season.
You're wearing a onesie. I don't believe that.
Yeah, but I get more tail than Arrow, inexplicably. That's why I'm Earth 1.
This world is quite strange to me.
I have more girlfriends than you do.
This doesn't make sense. I think I've been breathing in too much of the hard water vapors. I must really rethink my universe's stance on things.
Stop it. You do. That's exactly the voice I would imagine for Jay Garrick, though.
I'm doing an impression of the actor who plays him in the show. Because they have that trailer out there.
Yes,
He was like, my name is Jay Garrick. I'm,
except he's like 30 instead of 85.
Yeah. When you open the singularity,
That's right.
You opened a portal. He's down here.
Yeah, and he's very measured.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of the way you would expect someone like that. That was funny.
Sure.
Anyway, back to Flash of Two Worlds.
Yes. So the rest of the JSA soon joined the Flash after the retirement. Although their activities during the 1960s, other than their annual meetings with the Earth 1 Justice League, what they had Thanksgiving.
And all the annuals, that's right.
Their adventures were unrecorded because they weren't put in comics, that's why.
This is also the same time that Black Canary comes over and we get the second Black Canary in this universe.
Although only one thing is clear.
Okay.
Alan Scott and Jay Garrick remained good friends, best friends during this time.
Bestie best friends.
Yeah. Now, Garrick was also a key member of the JSA's 1970s adventures, as chronicled in All-Star Comics and Adventure Comics, as well as he helped to launch the careers of Infinity Inc.
Cool.
Following the Crisis on Infinite Earths, all the parallel worlds merged into one, and Keystone City became the twin city across the river, not the end the universe, from Alan's Central City. And an updated story suggested that Keystone in this new continuity was rendered invisible for several years and wiped from the memories of the world for many years through the actions of several supervillains, which would explain why
it was never there.
Why it suddenly just popped into existence.
Interesting.
Now, before we jump into the future,
okay,
I just talked about Crisis on Infinite Earths.
You did.
Ashley, what is Crisis on Infinite Earths?
So DC had a lot of Earths.
Well, we talked about it. We have Earth 1, we have Earth 2. They went all the way to Earth X.
DC had, just like Windows, DC had many, many Earths. So they only wanted one Earth, so they had a crisis and farted out one universe.
Yep.
And killed Supergirl.
And you know what else farted out a universe but did not kill Supergirl?
I don't know, but I bet you're going to tell me.
I will, and that is supporting Geek History Lesson on Patreon.
You can fart out a whole podcast universe.
At patreon.com/Jawiin, that's Jawiin. You can't fart out a whole universe, but what you can fart out is an extra podcast. That's right. If you go to patreon.com/Jawiin and you donate at a $5 level, you get to listen to every week a new exclusive podcast. It's called Geek History Lesson Extra.
So cool.
The day after this episode drops on iTunes or Stitcher, you can go to patreon.com. You'll get a little notification in your email inbox if you choose so, and you will have a 20-minute episode, Geek History Lesson Extra. It's an extra podcast. It's more Geek History Lesson, but it's for the $5 patrons over at patreon.com/Jawiin, or if $5 is too much money for you a month, which is not, because that's basically the price of a comic book right now.
If you think about it, for all the episodes that you get in a month, in addition to the Geek History lesson extras, you'll be paying less than 75 cents an episode.
Holy cow. Well, if say that's too much for you and you want to just donate $3 a month, you'll get Geek History Lesson episodes a day early.
And you can brag to all your friends.
Yeah. So on Sundays, you can just go on there. We'll email it to you, just like Patreon does, and you'll have a downloadable MP3, the same lesson that will be on iTunes the next day, a day early.
Awesome.
So Geek History Lesson Extra, $5 patrons. Geek History Lesson Early, $3 patrons. And all the support there helps us keep this podcast going, helps keep podcasts free. Like, we had some complaints I saw on Twitter where people were like, why are you doing the ads? And it's like, hey, it's a free podcast. But hosting a podcast is not free.
Equipment is not free.
Nope. There you go. So that's simple. And we just want to do more things. We have more ideas for videos, actually more ideas for more podcasts.
Yes, we do.
So the better our Patreon does, the more podcasts we do. And let's hop right back into the multiverse.
Zoom.
And following the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Ashley, all the parallel worlds, as I said, merged into one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, basically what happened is that the JSA fought in World War II in this new universe.
Okay.
They retired, they wouldn't give up their identities, and then they disappeared.
Cool.
But where did they go?
To the multiverse?
No, there's no multiverse anymore.
To space?
It disappeared.
I don't know. Tell me.
Actually, what happened in 1986, the year after Crisis, DC decided to write off the JSA from active continuity. They were like, we don't like these old people. Get them the hell out of here.
Yay!
So they created a one-shot called The Last Days of the Justice Society.
Yeah, that's a really good one-shot.
It is.
It's very sad.
It involved most of the team battling the forces of evil while merged with the Norse gods in an ever-repeating Ragnarok-like limbo. This had art by David Ross, and only Power Girl, the Star-Spangled Kid, the Spectre, and Dr. Fate escaped the cataclysm. All the rest of the JSA was trapped in this world for all time.
Because they're the only ones involved in other books.
In 1991, in the final issue of the 4-issue Armageddon Inferno limited series, now at the time there was this big event called Armageddon. It wasn't very good. I'm not going to tell you much about it.
Okay.
It wasn't.
I've never heard of it, and only important events you still hear about.
Let me tell you something.
Tell me something.
Armageddon was one of the issues also.
Is that the issue where Ben Affleck puts a cookie in Liv Tyler's belly button?
No. But it is the episode where, don't want to close my eyes. I got a comic to read because I'm missing you, baby. And I brought a gun on a spaceship.
What?
And there's a plot of that movie where they bring a gun onto a spaceship.
I've never seen that movie. That's the only scene I know from it, and that they're oil drillers.
I'm going to say this. People are going to hate me. I hate that movie.
Please go to our social media and request the Armageddon episode.
No. So Armageddon, the DC comic series, was actually one of the issues in that same bundle of Justice Society.
Oh, no way.
So I've read Armageddon #1.
Only #1?
I've never cared to read 2, 3, or 4.
Do you still own it?
No, I don't think so. I think it's long gone. It's really, really long. It's not good. It's so not good. That's why we're not going to talk about it. Let's move on.
Okay, moving on.
In Armageddon Inferno, the JSA returns to the modern-day DC universe when Wave Rider, who is basically like kind of a time-traveling cosmic guy like Rip Hunter and all stuff like that.
A Wave Rider.
Yep. He transported a daemon of the International Abraxas to Asgard as a substitute for the JSA. So basically, the JSA were stuck in the... Okay, it's complicated. See, remember I told you it's complicated? It's complicated. The JSA were stuck in the cycle.
Yep.
This guy put somebody else in their place, and the JSA were able to, yay, we're free, because somebody else was in their place.
And before people start yelling about how Asgard is a Marvel property, the Norse gods are in the public domain.
Hey. So that thing that I just explained happened, which I'm not going to explain again because it doesn't matter, allowed the team to return to Earth. So Jay was back on Earth. And this is basically kind of how they explain in the new continuity how Jay and all of them aren't old men.
Yes.
Although they are still old, but they're not as old. They're not 90, which is what they should have been.
No, I would say like by the time you get to the Teen Titans run that I was talking about earlier, that comes out in like 2006.
They're like 60?
Yeah, like pushing 60. He's got gray hair.
Okay, so Jay's back on Earth.
Cool.
And after this, many of Garrick's JSA cohorts have retired or died. But Garrick, of course, remains active. And he's physically actually, oh, I have it right here. I'm sorry. He's actually physically about 50 years old.
There you go.
Thanks to the anti-aging treatments and being stuck in Ragnarok.
There is a thing, too, that the speedsters, because their metabolism is faster, they can heal faster and age slower, that writers kind of use willy-nilly.
Yeah. It was also said that around this time, after he returned, that his actual chronological age is about 90.
Okay.
Like actual years.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
So Jay starts taking a more fatherly approach towards his teammates and the DC superhero community. Actually, there's a really fun scene. He once ate lunch with Wally West and Nightwing in an issue of The Flash.
I've read that.
And Grayson remarks that he's like, I want to be like Jay Garrick when I grow up.
Yeah.
And I always love that line. And then Hal Jordan tries to remake the universe with the help of a villain named Extant.
Okay.
Who is Extant? Doesn't matter. Okay.
Next time, I'm going to remember.
Yep. One sentence. Hal Jordan, because he's crazy now, Coast City is destroyed.
He tries
to restart the Big Bang to bring back Coast City.
With Extant.
Yep.
Cool.
Now, the Justice Society fights Extant. And Extant is like this cosmic-y time travel villain.
Yeah, whatever.
He's the guy that's all red in the covers and kind of looks like Spawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does look like Spawn.
He looks a little bit like Spawn. They have similar design elements. You can tell Dan Jurgens was maybe reading Spawn at the time. I'm just saying. Nothing wrong with that. I was reading Spawn at the time too. It's okay.
And you can tell that Todd McFarlane had been drawing Spider-Man.
Now, during this fight, the JSA gets their asses kicked.
Yes, they do.
The Atom is murdered. Dr. Fate is defeated. Wildcat and Sandman are aged into withering old men. And then eventually, most of the members of the JSA are aged to old men.
Yes.
And because of this event, most of the JSA are basically now their proper ages. So they're all old men.
Mm-hmm. They're their chronological ages.
Yeah. Now, some of the ones that were saved from this is Jay, obviously, because of his super speed and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Alan Scott, because of Green Lantern's energy. Mm-hmm. And then, or the Starheart, as it's later called. And then also Wildcat, because of his whole 9 lives thing.
Yes, that is a thing.
But one of them that was hit the hardest was Ted Knight. And Ted Knight...
Mr. Starman.
Yes, Ted Knight, the original Starman, gets turned 80. But because of this event, this is what sets off the Starman series.
Yes.
Because now that he's old, he's like, oh, I have to have a replacement. And that's why he picks his son. So there you go.
Maybe not his favorite son.
And Starman is one of my favorite comic book runs of all time. So great.
I think almost everyone I know who has read Starman holds it in it's like Astro City. Like everyone I know who's read it speaks very, very highly of it.
It's great. It's an amazing story.
It's also beautiful.
Yes. I've said for years that I've thought Starman would make an amazing television show.
Did you do it as a miniseries or as an ongoing?
No, ongoing. I would make it ongoing and make it 5 seasons.
Do you introduce Courtney?
Yes.
Cool. I'm in.
Yeah. Courtney's your final episode. He has to. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it if you never read Starman, but Courtney's your final episode.
Yeah.
But I think with 5 episodes you could do it. Base it in the pawn shop.
Do you want it in the Flaro universe?
It could be in the Flaro universe, but I actually say no because you need to explain that these some of these heroes have been around for
okay, fair enough.
50 years.
Yeah. You need the history, of course.
Yes. I think you could leave it in Opal City and just make it all about Starman and don't involve the other heroes of the DC universe. Be fine. This is the Jay Garrick podcast, not that I'm going to pitch Starman podcast. Okay.
Sorry.
Here we go.
That whole pitch, copyright Geek History Lesson.
Yep. Now, soon the Just Society of America, after 0 Year, reformed to help the JLA against an imminent threat rising from the fifth dimension. Of course, this storyline happened in Grant Morrison and Howard Porter's JLA, what I consider to be the best Justice League run of all time.
We bring it up in every podcast possible.
Yes, we do. Now, during the storyline, while fighting the Mad Imp... Oh, no, this is different. I'm sorry. Soon, Jay and his team has also fought the Mad Imp Ligz, and they helped to free the Spectre.
What was that name?
Ligz. It's LKZ.
I know.
Ligz. This fighting that imp, in addition to the death of longtime ally Wesley Dodds, the Sandman, the original Sandman, prompted the remaining members of the JSA to fully come out of retirement, and they decided to form a new team with Alan Scott, Ted Grant, and Jay Garrick to train a new hero, a new generation of heroes. Upholding the legacy of their veterans and making sure that they're on the right track. So they were soon joined by Mr. Terrific, the Star Spangled Kids, who is Courtney, as we said, and Hawkgirl. Now, one of their first adventures was with a revitalized JSA, included a battle with an old foe named Johnny Sorrow. And during this incident, Jay had his first true brush with the Speed Force. He used his speed to trap Johnny Sorrow inside the Speed Force, but the battle propelled Jay 3,000 years into the Earth's past. Now, you may be asking yourself, why was this Jay's first brush with the Speed Force?
Jason, myself, why was this Jay's first brush with the Speed Force?
Because nobody knew what the hell the Speed Force was until Mark Waid created it in 1995.
Yeah.
So, and since this story was written after 1995, hey, the Speed Force is now.
Yeah,
here.
Look at that.
So Jay arrived in ancient Egypt where he met Teth Adam. Who's Teth Adam, Ashley?
I don't know.
Teth Adam is the original human guise of a supervillain who is soon to be played by The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, Black Adam.
I don't know anything about Black Adam.
Yep.
I'm sorry I let you down.
He also met the sorcerer Naboo.
I know who that is.
Who's Naboo?
Dr. Fate.
He is one
of the hosts.
He is the spirit of the Dr. Fate helmet.
Yeah, there you go.
And he met Prince Khufu Qatar. Who is Khufu Qatar?
A pharaoh.
He is a pharaoh, but he is one of the original hosts that would be later reincarnated into Hawkman. Yes, because Hawkman's all about being reincarnated. So, with the aid of a device known as the Claw of Horus, Jay was eventually able to return to his normal time period. And then soon, Jay and his wife have to return to the present, Joan.
Mrs. Jay Garrick.
They took in young Jakeem Thunder. Now, Jakeem Thunder he's like Johnny Thunder. He has the new lightning bolt imp guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Is he a character of color?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And he was introduced in the Grant Morrison storyline.
Yeah.
He's actually a Grant Morrison creation. So the Garricks invited Jakeem to stay in their home in Keystone City. And soon down the line, Jay had one of the worst battles of his entire life. He was forced to fight an old wartime foe called the Dragon King.
Okay.
And the Dragon King gained possession of the legendary Spear of Destiny.
Oh.
What is the Spear of Destiny, Ashley?
The Spear of Destiny is this weird thing in the DC universe that maybe has religious overtones, depending on how you want to think about it.
It does.
Yep. That people sometimes think has a kryptonite tip.
No.
Oh, I thought that was a thing.
No. It's just like imbued with so much magic. The Spear of Destiny is supposed to be the spear that supposedly impaled
Pierced
Christ.
the side of Christ, yes.
And the crucifixion, blah, blah, and Hitler had it for a time, and now...
Yeah, and it keeps showing up. I thought it had a kryptonite tip, though. I thought that was a thing.
No.
Stupid.
Now, the Dragon King used the Spear of Destiny to take control of Jay's mind, and he forced Jay Garrick to fight Wildcat. And because Jay is super speed and Wildcat has no powers except for like this 9 lives thing, Jay beat the living hell out of Wildcat so much that he made him lose almost all of his 9 lives.
So like 8.
Yeah, so he lost like 8. Yeah. And then after a time, Max Mercury, as we told you, the Whip Whirlwind, he disappeared into the Speed Force. And Bart, who was living with Max Mercury, had nowhere to go. And Jakeem had moved out by this time. So Bart was taken in by Jay Garrick, the first Flash, and his wife, Joan.
I love Bart.
Mm-hmm. And of course, after the breakup of Young Justice, Bart joined his former teammates in the new lineup of Teen Titans. And then during and after the events of Infinite Crisis, the Speed Force disappears.
What?
Yeah. Because Jay disappears into the Speed Force with all the speedsters, with Wally, with Impulse, with Barry from the dead, to wrestle Superboy Prime, who is the villain of Infinite Crisis, who is an evil Superboy from a different universe.
A hole in reality.
And they trap him in the Speed Force. Now, Jay is left behind because he actually can't run as fast as the other Flashes. And so he gets lost and he gets thrown out of the Speed Force. Eventually, an adult Bart Allen returns out of the Speed Force. And basically, Bart Allen absorbed all of the Speed Force because he escaped from Superboy Prime. And Jay claims that without the Speed Force, basically he can only run the speed of sound now. He can't run as fast as he can. And also, since the Speed Force is no longer retarding his aging, he's starting to get old.
He gets real old.
Yep. And soon Bart leaves him. He says, like, sayonara, old man. And he goes to Los Angeles. And Jay,
that's true.
And Jay is the only Flash left in Keystone City. And then eventually Bart dies in a really bad storyline, and Jay's powers return.
Yeah, never comes back.
Yep. The JSA reform again. They fight Gog with the help of the Kingdom Come Superman.
I thought you said they fight God.
They fight Gog with the help of Kingdom Come Superman. And the new 52 soon happens.
Yes, it does.
And the old man version of Jay Garrick doesn't exist anymore.
Nope, because he's not sexy.
What's the new 52? Help us out here.
So
it involves a Flash.
Barry Allen misses his mom. So he runs really fast back in time to see her. And when he comes back to the present, everybody has over-designed costumes. And some of them got really cool books and some of them got less cool books.
Yep.
And everyone's only been a superhero for like 5 years. And there's been like 90 Robins.
Yep.
Except Tim Drake.
Mm-hmm. Jay shows up in a book after the New 52 called Earth 2 with a design by Nicholas Scott, which I actually love.
She draws the sexiest men.
Sure.
She does. It's a scientific fact.
Now, in this book, Jay is not on the main Earth. He's on Earth 2, just like, back in the day. And he's young. He's in his 20s.
And he has a cool costume.
Yep, I just said that.
A really cool costume.
Yeah,
but that's like the most important part is that he's got a cool costume.
His origin in this universe is that Jay soon discovers the dying god Mercury, who had just escaped from his captors who had held him in captivity since the invasion of Apocalypse. Now, in this universe, in this New 52, basically almost every Earth was attacked 5 years ago by the forces of Apocalypse.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Jay soon asked Mercury if it was the forces of Apocalypse that had imprisoned him, and Mercury said that it was a force much darker. And Mercury warned that there needed to be a new age of heroes to fight this force, and he saw greatness in Jay, even if Jay couldn't see it himself, because in this universe, Jay is kind of a screw-up.
He's kind of the Bart Allen of his time.
Before dying, he imbued Jay with his power and told him to trust no one. And soon after the police arrived, Jay put on Mercury's helmet and got the super cool costume and ran at the speed of light out of there. And soon he was confronted by Hot Girl, who had been expecting him. And then they form a new team of wonders. It's interesting that in that universe they call they don't call them superheroes or superpowers. They call them wonders.
Like the wonders of the world.
Yep.
I also think it's really interesting that in that Earth 2 book, his relationship with Alan Scott is really, really important. Because they're really the ones who started off that friendship. And like in the JLA series that we mentioned earlier, you have like Kyle Rayner and Wally West being best buddies too.
Yep. And of course he forms an original team of wonders with Dr. Fate, Hawk Girl, young Alan Scott, and more. And then they do a lot of convoluted stuff. They stumble through Convergence, and then they star in a new title called Earth 2 Society, which is okay. But those first 16 issues of Earth 2, written by James Robinson, are great and amazing.
Yes.
And that's where Jay Garrick is in the comic books right now.
Cool.
And that's it. In other media, Jay Garrick was a recurring character in Batman the Brave and the Bold. He was voiced by Andy Milder. Milder. I don't know.
Probably. Is the L before the D?
It's Milder.
Milder.
Okay. In Smallville, in the episode Run, one of the aliases used by Bart Allen is Jay Garrick.
Oh, that's cute.
And then the actual Jay Garrick appears in the episode called Absolute Justice. He was played by Billy Mitchell.
Yes.
And that is the Justice Society episode. Is possibly the best episode of Smallville ever.
If you want to go see that painting, it's on Earth 2 Comics.
Yep. He is a superhero in the 1970s and a research scientist who the government arrested for fraud, and he resisted arrest in a mission to take down the JSA. Like all the arrests of the JSA in that universe, are tried to take the blame for the crimes, but they were never convicted. And then soon he shows up in season 2 of The Flash, and I do not know the name of the actor who is playing them. I didn't look that up. I'm an idiot. He's a new guy.
This is going to be his breakout role. So
yes.
It'll be like we didn't know who Grant Gustin was before.
There you go. You can go Google it. It's all good. And that's the history of Jay Garrick. Very convoluted, a lot longer than I thought I would take, but
I actually want to commend you on having to take a character, because when you do these characters that DC spins in and out of their main universe, it's really hard to patchwork them together.
This took a lot of research.
And I thought that this was very salient and very easy to follow. So
cool. Thank
you very much for that.
All right, let's move on to recommended reading. My recommended reading for Jay Garrick is JSA Omnibus Volume 3. You can find it all in the single issues, but it's the third volume of the Justice Society. It's the one I told you about where it has all Alex Ross covers.
Yes.
And they fight Gog and the Kingdom Come Superman. It's actually my favorite run of JSA, more so than the early ones. They just released it in Omnibus. You can find it in trade paperbacks all over the place.
I think the trades went out of print because the Omnibus are out there, but they're still very prevalent on shelves and online.
They're all over Comixology. I looked.
Yeah.
They're all over there. It's great. And also, I would recommend Earth 2, issues 1 through 16, which is the first 4 trade paperbacks. That's the James Robinson. If James Robinson's name on the cover, buy it. That's great. And that's the story I told you about where he finds Mercury. Do you have any recommended reading for Jay Garrick?
I would say go on Comixology, and I know it's on there, and get
Flash of Two Worlds?
Yeah, Flash 123, because for a Silver Age story, it really holds up because it's a cool idea, and it's going to be a big part of this new Flash episode. So if you want to, if you're looking for Easter eggs.
Fun fact.
Which
I thought was really cool and was pointed out to me later. Season 1, episode 23 of The Flash is the season finale of The Flash, and that's where the first time we see Jay Garrick's helmet.
Yes, I had heard that.
The first time we see the multiverse, which I think is really cool.
I would say, too, I really enjoyed The Flash. It didn't excite me the way it excited you, necessarily, the TV show. But when Jay Garrick's helmet came out, I was so excited.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on to, let's have a very brief discussion because we were running a little bit long. What do you see as Jay Garrick's role in the DC universe? Like, who is he? What is he?
That's a really interesting question.
Okay.
I am still very attached to him as I first met him, as he is kind of the senior speedster, like him as this guiding force, but he's also ostensibly the leader of the JSA.
He kind of is. Well, it may be him or Alan. It's probably Alan Scott, I would say, maybe.
Sure. So I don't know. That's a really tough question.
Okay. I mean, do you like him as a mentor?
I do. I really like him as a mentor. But if I'm looking at the scope of the DC universe, I mean, I would even give him the credit as being one of the characters that allowed time travel effortlessly in that comic booky way that we make fun of now and that we parody now. But I like to see him as a mentor, to the younger character. I like him as a patriarch. But I mean, I think it's really interesting what they did with him in Earth 2.
Cool.
But I kind of want him to be a nice grandpa. Yeah.
You like him as a grandpa?
I do like him as the grandpa, yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's a really great question that I wasn't prepared enough for.
It's all right. I'll have even more difficult questions for you in the Geek History Lesson Extra, which you can listen to if you're a $5 patron at patreon.com/Jawiin.
I mean, you can go to geekhistorylesson.com and there's a link.
There you go. Is there?
There is a Patreon button.
Oh, cool.
Yes, there is.
All right, let's move on to the teaching tweet. Ashley, what is the teaching tweet?
The teaching tweet is where in 140 characters or less, sometimes with a lot of emoticons, you are going to sum up Mr. Jason J. Peter Garrick.
Here's my teaching tweet on Jay Garrick the Flash. He's the Flash that time forgot. But Jay Garrick is the only man in the multiverse that can make a helmet work. There you go.
That's cool. I love that.
Hashtag Zoom Zoom. Okay.
Do you have enough characters left for that hashtag?
I have no idea.
Because I just wrote one for an upcoming episode that is the only one that I've actually hit exactly 140 characters on,
really?
and I was super proud of it.
It's awesome. All right, well, that is it. We have reached the finish line of our Geek History lesson on The Flash, Jay Garrick. I want to thank you all for listening. If you just want to listen more, again, we said Geek History Lesson Extra, Jay Garrick episode. We're going to be talking more about the JSA. So go over to Patreon and go check that out. But if this is enough for you, just download us at iTunes and Stitcher. Make sure you subscribe. Go leave us a rating and review because it helps other listeners out there find the podcast just like you. And if you want to complain to us that this episode had too many 0-hour references, then you need to go where, Ashley, on our social medias?
You need to go to geekhistorylesson.com or facebook.com/geekhistorylesson.
Also, really quick, another cool place that you can go. There's a button on geekhistorylesson.com to our store. And we have a really cool couple of t-shirts, Enter the Mining University t-shirts, and a really cool tea mug, which I think is really awesome. It's blue. It says Enter the Mining University. And all that helps support. Go over to geekhistorylesson.com, click on store. It's all right there. Ashley can be found on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson. I can be found on Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin. Please complain about the multiverse to us.
Please send us pictures of hot Jay Garrick.
Hot Jay Garrick. Hashtag hot Jay Garrick.
It means you have to go look at some Nicholas Scott art.
Yep. You have to make those pictures safe, folks, because Geek History Lesson is a family podcast. A family podcast of the multiverse. Yep. I don't know. Any final thoughts on Jay Garrick?
Jay Garrick's cool, man. That's my final thought.
Any more in-depth thoughts on Jay Garrick?
I don't know.
Okay, awesome.
I think you summed it up great where he's the Flash that time forgot because he paved the way for the characters that are more popular, like Wally West is arguably way more popular, but Jay Garrick did it all first.
He did?
So.
He beat all of them by 20 years.
At least.
Yep. Okay, that's good. That's it. That's all we need to know. We're done with the multiverse. We're shutting it down.
False.
We're gonna end this universe, and that's all we need to say. I'm Jason Hardwater Vapors Inman.
Oh my God. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Professor Zoom, will you take this class away?
That's the end of this podcast, but be sure to tune in next week for our episode supported by Charleston Chew. Your class right now is dismissed by war bonds.